But I've learnt through the hard way that it is so much better to be obedient to Christ than it is to try and come up with my own good ideas. You can't have intimate fellowship with God without intimate fellowship with others.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Upside Down People. This is a podcast where we explore the intersection of faith, culture, and Christian practice. It's a podcast where we seek to see how the gospel encourages and changes everything. With us today is Luke Bates. I'm really excited about this conversation. Luke is an entrepreneur. Luke is by nature one of the most encouraging people that you can have a conversation with. And I'm really hoping that you as our listeners are encouraged by the conversation we are about to have. Let's get into it. Well, welcome to the show, Luke. I'm so pleased to have you here.
Oh, pleasure, mate. It's an absolute honour to come down.
Yeah.
Have a chat.
I'm so glad you agreed on this fine and fresh morning.
Yeah. Yeah, the weather's a bit all over the place at the moment, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I probably shouldn't have said morning because we've just poured ourselves a whiskey, but
Hey.
yeah. It's afternoon somewhere, right?
It is. Yeah, that's great.
Well, I'm wanting to have a conversation with you about faith and business, as you know, and exploring and unpacking a bit of your experiences and your mind in that realm. But before we dive into it, maybe you can share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And what you've been up to, what you're doing. Yeah, just who is Luke Bates?
Yeah, great question. I'm probably still finding out the answer to that question, but at the moment I'm married. I've been married for 15 years to my wife Rebecca, and we have 3 kids. So I've got a 10, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Wow.
We've got 2 dogs. Lived in Perth my whole life, grown up here, and I guess to get to the point, started a business in late 2010, early 2011, and ran that through until last year when I really felt God call me out of that.
Yeah.
Still involved as a silent shareholder with my business partner, but currently am the associate pastor at a church in the southern suburbs of Perth.
No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's good.
So, out of all of that, what's your hobbies, your interests? What do you get up to when you've moved into a different role now from from Grand Central Coffee?
Yeah.
What have you got up to, and what do you get up to in your free time?
Yeah,
if you have any free time, 3 kids, 2 dogs.
Yeah, there's an element of that where some of my friends who are without children or have seen their children, I suppose, leave home.
Yeah,
they talk about all these things that they get up to. It's like, oh wow, it sounds beautiful. But no, we live pretty simple life, which is something that Beck and I have been very purposeful in doing. It sounds boring, but I actually really enjoy reading theology.
Yeah,
I just love it.
What does that look like when you say theology is pretty broad?
Yeah, and I probably mean to be very broad.
Okay.
From I suppose things like biblical studies or looking at particular texts and digging deep there. I love that.
Yeah.
To I suppose the how do we live this faith out in different areas of life, sorting through questions of morality, and these are all areas of great joy for me.
Yeah.
And marries up well with, I suppose, my pastoral position in our church. We're just encountering so much of life with people and the diversity that of things that people have to encounter.
Yeah.
I love thinking about that theologically.
That's awesome.
As my wife Beck would say that she's probably doing the work of loving people, and I'm still trying to work it all out. Which is pretty funny.
So you complement each other pretty well.
Complement each other, and she encourages me, and I encourage her. But I love basketball.
Yeah.
So I'm a big basketball guy.
Didn't you at one stage, weren't you going to make it big? Is that true?
Oh, look, I don't know if I would have made it big, but I played with a lot of people that did make it big,
Right.
which was great.
So you must have been all right.
I was okay.
Yeah.
I was okay. I worked, when I suppose I started out, I had to work very hard.
Yeah.
But I can't jump. I can't jump over anything. But what I had was, I think I learnt how the game worked, and I was able to be smart with where I put myself and read plays, and sort of knew where the ball was going to probably end up or whatever. So I worked hard at it.
Yeah.
And I kept up with some of these guys.
That's awesome.
So no, it was good. And but now I enjoy watching. Love the NBA.
Favorite team?
So yeah. So I was born in the 80s, so I grew up late 80s, 90s. Obviously Chicago Bulls were everything.
Yeah, okay.
So I've stuck with them.
Wow.
Which it's been hard work.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Bulls over the years. There hasn't been a lot to celebrate season on season, but
You've stuck with,
we've stuck with them. Yeah. So I've got a good friend that I'm still very close to, that I went to high school through with, and his name's Nathan, and he's a Bulls guy, and there's been temptations to leave, and one of us has kept each other accountable. So
that's good. Yeah, together. Yeah. I feel like in terms of with my wife's from America.
Yeah.
She's from Indiana, which is the basketball state, I believe.
Absolutely. Larry Bird.
Yeah, exactly. I don't play basketball.
You're like, yes.
Yeah, the bird.
The bird.
I love the bird. But I feel like there's a sentiment in Australia that people enjoy the NBA.
Yeah.
But they are not loyal to a team. Where in America, there's obviously a lot more loyalty, but their college ball is a lot bigger. But you've obviously stuck to the Bulls.
Yeah.
With all the BS.
Oh, mate.
Through it all.
Absolutely. It's, But other than that, I love shoes. I'm a big shoes guy.
I noticed your shoes on the way in. I was going to compliment you.
Yeah.
I may as well compliment you now.
Oh, thanks.
Shoes.
Thank you.
Would you call yourself a sneakerhead?
So I probably look a lot more than I buy.
Okay.
So being a sneakerhead and then being adverse to seeing that type of money leave my pocket,
balances it out a little bit. You get the enjoyment from.
There's a lot of angst. There's a lot of angst involved. I've got enough to get through a week where I can wear a different shoe a day.
Yeah. Okay.
And enjoy them.
Yeah.
I don't compete with some of my friends who have a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But I just can't spend that type of money.
Yeah.
Regularly.
I can understand that.
I just can't do it.
Well, let's dive into the first part of the conversation and just see where it goes. You mentioned you started up this business, Grand Central Coffee, about 13 years ago.
Yeah.
2010. So maybe you can take us briefly through that journey of what that looked like as a starting point.
Yeah. So just quickly, I suppose, an overview of that time. Started late 2010, quit my job. Beck was working full time. We didn't have any kids. Been married sort of 2.5 years, almost 3 years by that stage. And I just went for it. I bought a $25,000 5-kilo roaster, and put it in mum and dad's carport. I had nowhere to put it, so I just put it in mum and dad's carport. And then bought back then it would have been a lot of coffee, 10 $12,000 worth of greens on a pallet, and then went, all right. So greens are unroasted coffee.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
For everyone listening. But yeah, so, and then just went for it and went, right, who am I selling coffee to? So my first customers are just friends who felt sorry for me, buy coffee from me.
Right.
And then I spent the first 2 years just slugging my guts out, going to every cafe I could think of, I could find, and hoping someone would say yes to start buying my coffee.
And what was that journey? What did that look like? Did you get success? I can imagine you got quite a bit of knockbacks. It's almost like door-to-door salesman.
Oh, mate, absolutely. And that, no one knew you, right?
Yeah.
They might know people who know you.
Yeah.
But they don't know you. And at that stage in Perth, there were probably 10, 12 coffee roasters around, like notable roasters. So it was kind of it was a big thing to have just some new brand out on the street. And when you're getting out and you're looking for that first client, people want to know who you're selling to already.
Yeah.
You got no one to, I don't have anyone.
Yeah.
But you can be that person.
You're looking for a break.
Totally.
Man.
I thought about stealing other people's children and pretending they're mine and just pleading that I can't feed them, buy my coffee.
Yeah.
Thought about those sales techniques, but didn't succumb to that. But yeah, to answer your question, it was hard work. It was really, really hard work. There were times where, I'd go home and I'd just say to Beck, I think I just need to chuck all this in and just go do something else. And she it was really her encouragement. She goes, give it another 3 months. And so I'd give it another 3 months, and sure enough, a little bit of hope would happen, like maybe a little cafe or a restaurant, or just, it wasn't big business. It was just like little small things would happen, and I'd go, oh, maybe there's something there.
Maybe there's something.
And so by year 3, I was on a full-time wage. Had enough clients to pay me a really comfortable wage, where we started having kids, living off that.
Wow.
And then by the end of year 3, I was able to employ my first staff member.
Wow.
And so really just God's grace, hey? Like the amount of times I just did not want to get out of bed and face trying to get this business going.
Yeah.
It was almost daily. Absolutely soul destroying at times. But I felt there was just this little conviction of just going, no, keep going. Going. It will work. It'll be okay. And then about probably about 3 or 4 years later, had this opportunity to bring a business partner on board. And so I was running this business by myself for probably about 7-8 years. And running a small business alone can be quite lonely.
Yeah.
You've got all these things happening, relational issues, business issues, things to solve, and all those things stop with you being basically self-employed with just a casual.
Yeah.
So having a business partner come in took a lot of that weight off, where we could share that load together. But our personality types are very different.
Yeah, right.
Very, very different.
How would you describe those differences?
Yeah, so if people have done like that disc profile,
Okay.
I'd be like the I. I'd be the influencer, very relational, very, loves doing things together as team.
Yeah.
Wants everyone involved. Where his personality is more that D, like very choleric. Makes a decision, backs himself 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
He's happy to take big risks.
Yeah.
And has a goal in mind and will do whatever he needs to get there.
Yeah.
And so when we first started in that partnership arrangement, it was it was challenging. It was really hard. And it was hard because we were actually friends prior to that.
Right.
So we were mates.
So, sorry, just to quickly interrupt. How did you feel about going into partnership with a friend?
Oh, mate.
Because that's like, I've had a few conversations with people in the space of business, and there's that question mark of like, it's not something that's like, oh yeah, my friend, let's just go do something together. It's like, are you sure? Like,
oh man. So I had nearly everyone saying, what are you doing? Don't do it. The number one rule in business is never go into business with family or close friends. Don't do it. And
so why did you do it, Luke?
Yeah, because I'm a
worked
maniac.
out well.
Yeah. No, it wasn't something on the radar with him at all. And it was just through deep prayer, and God had been speaking to me apart from speaking to him. And I'd got some real convictions around this being something that God wanted me to do. And then going to him and just talking it through with him, it was a bit of a surprise for him.
Right.
It wasn't something that, as I mentioned it to him, he was initially like, oh yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
He really needed that sort of confirming word from God for him and his wife as well.
Right.
To sort of go, yes, Lord, this is where you want us to go. So I think even though it was really hard, the thing that both, his name's Steve, the thing that Steve and I had was that real conviction, that no, God's asked us to do this. We've got to see it through.
Right.
So if you hate me right now and you just want to walk out, you can't.
Okay.
Because God's got something here. And both of us felt like that at times.
Did you know what that underlying principle was, what God had you there for? Was there clarity on that?
Yeah, so it wasn't like God's conviction to bringing us together wasn't about building a bigger business,
right,
making more money, or anything like that.
Right.
There were at the very beginning, we weren't quite sure, but we were both convinced that there was something to do with us partnering together was going to help advance the kingdom of God in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And both of us knew that without a doubt.
Very cool.
And so whilst we didn't have, it wasn't like God laid out a clear picture for us about everything and gave us every single detail. It basically just said, I want you to do this. Will you trust me?
Yeah.
And we both went, okay, we have to. So it was a call of obedience, really.
Wow.
Both Steve and I. And so that obedience helped us, I suppose, having that conviction of going, we're going to be faithful in our call that God has given us. We're going to be obedient to him, and we're going to see what happens.
Yeah. That's cool.
And so for 2 years, it honestly, we at times we hated each other. And so through that, just being able to experience forgiveness and grace towards each other, like get to a place where both of us would say we just so desire each other's good now, like actually love each other, love each other's families, have each other's backs. Like I just know that without a doubt he'd have my back if something went wrong.
That's awesome.
And I hope he knows that.
Yeah.
That would be for me as well. But
if he's listening to this, then maybe you can find out.
Yeah.
Maybe you should
subscribe. Yeah.
You should just send him a text now.
Yeah. Just hit that subscribe button. So that was a journey. That was a journey for both of us. But what God cultivated out of that was just beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. We've discipled each other. He has become someone that I look at and go, wow, I see more of Jesus in him.
Right.
And I've learnt so much from him as well.
Yeah.
And grown to be more of a balanced individual,
Wow.
more of a healthy individual.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
it's been great.
Yeah.
We've so enjoyed it.
So obviously there's an obvious connection between your worldview of faith and business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just love how you described a bit of that journey of how much prayer was involved in that. I'm really curious to understand how you perceive or how you've partnered with Christ in doing business and what that looks like to you.
Yeah, I think it gets back to one's response to that gospel announcement. And people who know me know that I'm a broken record on this. So the gospel announcement is not an announcement about us. It's about Jesus.
Right.
It's about God's anointed one. It's about him being our king, having authority over heaven and earth. And so I guess the response as a Christ follower is it's a question of allegiance, a question of loyalty.
Right. What do you mean by that?
So there are things in our world that are always calling us to be loyal to pledge allegiance to. So at the moment, right now within our Western, I suppose, public discourse, the call to loyalty is to oneself.
Yeah.
So whether it's this is what I identify as, these are my truths, these are what I align to, or whatever the conversation is, the ultimate call of the West at the moment and the powers of the West, and I use powers as in sort of a spiritual sense,
right?
That they are calling us to place our loyalty into something, into a framework, into a way of living, into putting a lens on to see the world in a type of way. And I think if you've got eyes to see, you can see that a lot of these things are very countercultural. They're very opposite to the ways of how we see Christ reveal his kingdom. And so the question of loyalty is a question of wherever I find myself, whether it's in business, whether I work for someone, at home, with family, with friends, is am I practicing the ways of Jesus or not?
Right.
Is how I engage with the world in a way expressing my loyalty to the one that I would confess as king.
That's awesome.
And so because this has been something that I've been convicted of and convinced of for many, many years, when I went into business, I was like, Lord, I'm your servant. Right. So it wasn't a sense, and people go, oh yeah, but no, I actually did. I actually really believed that the business wasn't mine. It wasn't mine.
Yeah.
It was his. And he was calling me to do this business. And there was many reasons why I felt like he was calling me to do it. But at the end of the day, I had to run it in the way that he would want me to run it.
Right. So then how does that affect like your day-to-day business decisions, your day-to-day cultural like staffing or whatever it may be, getting a new client?
Yeah.
Like how does that mentality and that understanding or that view inform those other decisions that need to be made on a daily basis?
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. How does it? Yeah. So I think we all play a role, right? If you look at like Paul's analogy of the body and all the different parts play a role to make up the body, and one of the things that I really felt we were meant to be as a business was a business of generosity. And so generosity played a massive part in how we formed our business. So the generosity of Christ was something that we constantly went back to when we met business decisions.
Yeah.
Like, how can we be generous in this?
So do you have like an example that
Yeah.
you can share?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll share a humbling example
All right.
where I made a terrible decision.
Let's hear it.
But drove me because I wanted to be generous. Like so year 2, I finally get a lead, right? And this lead was big. And Caleb, you've been in the coffee industry.
Yes.
You know, a 70, 80 kilo account, that's a sizable account. That's
pretty big.
That's pretty big,
Yeah.
right? So that's a week.
That could feed your family.
That could feed that would help. Yeah, that would help me out a lot as a young buck starting in the industry.
Some meat and potatoes on the table.
Yeah, exactly. Low grade meat, but some meat.
It's still you're getting your proteins.
You're getting some protein. Yeah. So we got this lead, and I'm like, part of who I am is I'm hyper relational. So I want to get to know people.
Yeah. And
I want them to get to know me, and I want to build trust.
Right.
And so I spend time doing that, and we're catching up quite a lot with these owners of a cafe. And anyway, it gets to the point where they go, you know what? We're going to give you a crack.
Wow.
And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Like, I was on top of the moon, right? And so I shake hands on it, and I'm like, we've got a deal.
Yeah.
Now, the deal involved me buying in like a $20,000 coffee machine, right? And I was going to lend that coffee machine to them, and they were going to pay. I'm going to pay for the agreed price that I wanted for the coffee, right? And so it was a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
And so in generosity, I'm like, oh, should I make them sign a contract or not? And me being me is I tend to probably trust people a little bit too much.
You prefer the gentleman's agreement.
Yeah. So I was like, no, they shook hands on it. It's all good. So, so I order the machine, and the machine arrives, and so I ring them, and I'm like, oh, the machine's arrived. What date do you want me to come in and have it installed and all that kind of stuff? And then I'm met with a pause on the other end of the phone, and him saying, oh, actually, we've decided not to go ahead.
No.
And so this is an example of where generosity, like good generosity, is also generosity that has wisdom. Like, there's a sense of there's a required wisdom,
right?
That is needed for good generosity. So generosity that blesses others, but also is a generosity that that I suppose is one where all people can be provided for. Which I think that is the image of the kingdom, right?
Right.
Is that in the kingdom of God, there's plenty for everyone.
Yeah.
No one's taking more than what he or she should take.
Right.
Everyone gets something. Yeah. And so it's that picture of not, I guess, like Jesus' warnings, like not throwing pearls at swines. And I'm not calling these people swines at all. They're beautiful people, and I love them in it.
Yeah.
I didn't hold anything against them at all.
But that's just seems like your nature, right? You wouldn't hold something against someone
I was beating myself up. I was like...
So just clarifying, is this an example of where you learned how to do generosity in a godly way? Or is this an example of you were being generous? Like, what did you learn from this? Did you learn about generosity, or did you learn that that's not generosity?
Yeah, like exactly. I think, and I wanted to take it back to this because I don't want people listening going, oh, Luke's got this all together. I don't. I make mistakes. I fumble. I'm trying my best. My disposition is towards being generous. Like I want to desire to be generous, like Jesus is being generous to me. But learning about what generosity should look like, and gaining wisdom around how to run a business. Yeah, because my service isn't just to my clients. My service is, as it grew, was to my staff, my family, making sure that I'm providing for them. Like, that's a service of generosity as well. Like I needed to counter all of that together and go, right, there's got to be a way that I can move forward here where I'm not putting on the altar my family by now having a $20,000 machine, nowhere to go, no income. It's on finance, so now more money is coming out of the bank account.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's hard. There's a wrestle that we've got to learn in all of this.
So that's a great point, because there is something we have to learn in it, but there's also like that necessity to be able to take risks.
Correct.
And if you don't take a risk and if you don't make a decision, then really your chances of learning something are limited, or your chances of acting, for example, in this scenario, generously or not, like you won't ever learn that lesson. So how does your faith inform the risk taking in business?
Yeah, so great question. So I want to start with how does one grow in wisdom in this area? One grows in wisdom by having others involved in the conversation.
Very good.
So people who have been following Christ for some time, maybe other business men and women that have actually learnt how do I do this thing well, in my integrity of following Christ and being a blessing to everyone involved, And so I started meeting up with others and just confessing, like I did this,
like
that.
Other business people or other
business people,
right? Were they Christians? What did those others look like?
Yeah, quite a mix. But I think in this question around obviously allegiance to Jesus in business, these were other business people that have been following Jesus for some time.
Yeah, right.
Knowing that I'm young, these guys are way older and have led reasonably successful business careers,
right?
But also have not compromised on their following of Jesus. But also just meeting with elders within, like actually elder people,
right,
within the church, and sort of confessing at times my foolishness, my lack of wisdom in this area. And so this has helped form, I suppose, me in being wiser in generosity. So it's not pulling back from generosity because I've been bit a couple of times. Right. It's actually pushed us further into generosity, but in a way that actually is a blessing to all people involved.
That's amazing.
But where I suppose, what was your question before? You said it so well.
The question about risk.
Yeah.
Like how does your faith inform your ability to take risks in business?
Yeah. So I think this is the encouragement for anyone.
Yeah.
Whether you're in business or not, is that I had to, and what business has taught me is I had to get to a place where my foundational security was in the completed work of Christ.
Well,
once I had that, guess what? I can go out and I can fail and it's going to be okay. I can go out and I can succeed and it's going to be okay, because my security wasn't in whether I failed or whether I succeeded. My foundational, the very core of my being was, God's completed everything in Christ Jesus. And so I didn't have, this was a turning point for me.
Right.
Was getting a revelation of this through business, of learning, of being undone many, many times, of going, there's nothing to actually strive for. There's nothing that I had to beat myself to get to the finish line. There's nothing, no. It's all finished in Christ. And now I get the joy, the liberation, the freedom of that completed work to go out and to pursue all my creative endeavors in business. And that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Everything was going to be okay.
And do you think that it's, in terms of pursuing every creative endeavor that comes up, do you think that is something that's wise to do?
No. No, it's not. So
that would weigh into I was just thinking the risk thing, like you've got a family, you need to put food on the table.
Correct.
You need to like weigh up these other decisions of like, man, the choices I make are going to, even like you have staff, right? So I make a bad business decision, my staff, their families aren't going to be
Totally.
able to get fed. How do you juggle that? How do you navigate through those?
Yeah, no, these are good. This is the mess of life, isn't it, with Christ in the real world? Because people who, like myself, who love theology, we love thinking in the grand thoughts and the grand ideas and everything is so orderly and perfect. And then you get to the real world and you're like, oh man, this is hard work. How do I make this work?
Yeah, right.
With a rubber hits the road,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's getting back to those relationships. It's so important. As Christ followers, Christ has left this way of being a follower of Jesus that is not a individualistic, not a practice of following Jesus that is alone, but it's this intimate fellowship with God, with others.
Right.
You can't have intimate fellowship with God without intimate fellowship with others. They go hand in hand for some reason, and I think the some reason is off the top of my head is this reflective nature of who God is, that in Him He has community. There's a plurality of personhood in that one being. So that in our unity of Christ, there's a diversity of relationship, and that in some way we reflect that as we're doing it. And so I would have people and still have people that I ring in my pastoral work that I go, hey, I'm thinking X, Y, Z. Now, does wisdom then always say, no, I will only let you go about doing the things that have no risk to them? No, of course. There's always elements of risk.
Well, going back to generosity, like if we look at God's generosity, it's reckless. There's lots of risks involved. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. Like, so there is this generous risk taking that we see in God, but at the same time, like we live in a broken world with broken people, and not everything's going to work out to the benefit of everyone. So, as a business person, as a leader in a business, it's important that there's a sense of safeguarding what you've got in your hands. Like God has provided something for you. It might be a business where you're earning money. Okay, that's a gift. Then you need to look after that. You're a servant of His to be diligent with what He's given you. And so, but at the same time, in business, there will be sometimes it feels like daily, but on a regular occasion, you will be met with decisions that will require you to measure up and go, right, this is a risk to us. Do we do this or don't do this?
Yeah.
So whether it's updating branding or changing a blend for us as roasters, or employing a new person, whatever it is, or restructuring something, or building a new website, updating your back end, or whatever. There's risks entailed with changing anything in business, but we all know that a stagnant business will end up being a dying business. So we need to be, I suppose, be responding to the market and making sure that we're, again, protecting what God's given us. So it really comes back to I've been a person that has found great safety in community, where I can bounce ideas off people, and even people not even in our industry. like just going, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
And I've had times where people are going, that's just stupid. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And it's that humility, isn't it, to sort of go, oh, okay, right, maybe that's not wise. Maybe I think of something else here.
Yeah.
There's such protection in community, man.
It's beautiful. I think it's like you said, that there's something profoundly humble about laying out your thoughts to people that you trust and have wisdom, because it's acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, and you're not a perfect person, and people see things from different perspectives. So it's really wise to engage in that counsel.
Absolutely.
And even more so if you're running a business, if you're partaking in something that impacts not just yourself, but like the ongoing impact of others' lives as well. It's really important to have that counsel around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Business provides a great opportunity for us as Christ followers, because we end up in places that we would never end up being in, whether that's in communities that are very diverse, with people that may have very different worldviews or belief systems, people of different faiths, and so it's a great blessing, and I suppose as a business owner, to acknowledge that there is a missional aspect that we need to take seriously as Christ followers with our business. I'd want to all of our, I suppose, to all of your listeners that are listening in, that are running businesses, to actually go, right, there's a great opportunity here. There's opportunities everywhere, and sometimes it will be risky to enter in. I remember, long time ago, a client going through a divorce.
Right.
And I was able to just sit, be with them, and have them actually invite me to pray for them.
Wow.
And just basically pastor them, like without me really knowing what we were doing, just to be a presence of Christ's love.
Yeah.
So we're talking about business, and then, next second I'm, they're in tears, and we're out the alleyway right next to their cafe, and I'm praying for them.
Right.
Praying for peace, praying for God's strength, praying for wisdom. So just being, just these, and that's a risk, right?
Yeah.
So it's a risk to go to a client and go, can I pray for you?
Yeah.
And then to go, no, what are you doing, you weirdo?
Right.
Or to go, actually, I really, and in that time it was a great opportunity. So it really sensed the leading of God there, and so risks aren't necessarily just the pragmatics of the business mechanics or whatever. It's also relational risks that we need to make as well as Christ followers.
That's awesome. I love how you mentioned prayer. And I was just thinking, do you have examples of how your view of working and partnering with God in His kingdom has informed how you do business with your clients? What does that look like? Do you often offer prayer to your clients, or do you pray behind the books, or what? Yeah.
I mean, obviously we're not. So I want to be clear. There is no such thing as a Christian business.
Yeah.
We are Christ followers that happen to be running businesses.
I'm glad you made that clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our clients aren't coming on board because they're aligning with our Christian virtues or values.
Yeah. I can imagine most of your clients wouldn't be Christians.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 90-something% of them are not Christian.
Right.
Or not practicing Christians anyway. They might say I'm nominally.
Yeah.
yeah, we've got a great diverse group of clients, ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, every type of diversity you'd think of.
Yeah. So how does your faith then drive you to, it's not a business term, but to love those clients? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a great importance to us, that we communicate to our business partners, our clients, that we're here, yes, to support them with their coffee, but we're also available if they need us in regards to just emotional support.
Yeah.
And just opening up those conversations. I think to be vulnerable with each other and to show each other that, hey, we're here and we want to love you and we want to support you. Someone's got to be vulnerable first.
Yeah.
And so what I've done is I've probably not always intentionally, but I've probably led people into that vulnerability.
Yeah. Okay.
Where we might be, I'll just go. I mean, when I was just building a culture where I'd just go sit with people, just go sit with clients. Back in the day, I'd just go, yeah, hey, let's sit with each other and just talk
and allow that space.
Yeah, and I'd even sit down with them and go, hey, I'm not even here for business. I'm just here to see how you're going.
Well,
and oh man, there's so many conversations I've had where people have just, again, like that conversation before. That is not the only conversation I've had where someone's just broken down and shared their whole heart.
Yeah.
There's countless stories of that happening. We know the stresses of business. We know that running cafes it's not easy.
Mm.
It's not a walk in the park. It's hard work.
Right.
And so it's just, being able to take the odd, knowing that a client is struggling at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Just phoning him up and going, hey, I just want to take you out for lunch. That's as simple as it's been.
Yeah.
And them going, what? You want to? Yeah, my shout. I'll take you out for lunch. We're just going to hang out.
So there's plenty of opportunities to participate in what God's doing.
Totally, yeah.
Behind the scenes, right?
So being the hands and feet.
Yeah.
We've, as a church, we've just been in the thick of 1 John.
Okay.
Over the last few weeks. I just over John. John's like, in that 3rd chapter, he's like, what's love in? What's love? What's the love of Christ? What's love in action?
Yeah.
Like it's not sitting around believing things.
Right.
It's actually going out and doing the love of Christ.
Yeah.
For others. And so, yes, we pray. We constantly hold our clients up in prayer. Praying God's blessing and provision for them and so forth. And so that's been something that I've practiced a lot over the years. But it's also these very practical things. Steve, my business partner, is one of the most generous people I've ever met. And so he's pushed me into this just to think creatively.
Yeah.
So, for example, finding out, it's someone's birthday and I would just send them flowers with a letter.
Wow.
Or hearing that a client is really into something, and we'll just get them a voucher and just send it to them, and just go, hey, we remember talking last week about this, and we just thought we'll just bless you.
Yeah.
And just doing random things like that, and it's not trying to manifest stuff. It's just, I suppose, just responding to the opportunities that are there.
And I suppose from what I can hear is you've deliberately or intentionally positioned your heart in a way to be able to be aware of those opportunities when they come so that you can respond to it. It's like, that's what the partnering is about. If you don't have that awareness, then, because I'm just thinking, so many people who, not just business owners, but yeah, for sure, business owners have this opportunity to, or take the opportunities that they're given every day to participate in what Christ may be doing, whether that's just making the space for a conversation with an employee about how they're actually going, how's the family, or taking the time after work just to pray for them.
Absolutely. So, just very, very simple things, right?
Yeah.
And then just remembering those important things to people.
Yeah.
So that when you go back and see them, it's like, how's that going? It's so, people's faces light up. Hey,
Yeah.
just to show the kindness of going, I've seen you, I've heard you, and you're important.
Yeah.
You're not just a money machine for me.
Yeah.
And that's been something that I've been so convicted by, is that at the end of the day, God's my provider. My business isn't my provider. God uses that means to provide for me. But when I get that out of order, I'm in a world of pain as a business owner.
Yeah.
You quickly go, oh, my master isn't Jesus, it's now my business.
Right.
And, it's that seasonal thing. You go through it. Over that 13 years, I've gone through being liberated from it to then being captive to it.
Yeah.
And then going, oh, what am I doing? This is silly. Lord, help me, confess it to others, pray, seek his forgiveness, and then move on in some healing.
Yeah.
And so it's just being aware of it all, of what can capture your heart.
Yeah.
And really, really control you.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love how honest and transparent you are in that journey as well, Luke. It's really encouraging.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I would be very, very clear with people. People, oh, you've had some success in business. You must. No. It's I'm not the most brilliant business mind at all. But I've learnt through the hard way that it is so much better to be obedient to Christ, than it is to try and come up with my own good ideas.
Yeah.
And there's been seasons where we've gone, we cannot get this thing moving. Just can't get it moving. Or seasons where, we've had just a couple of big clients leave and you're like, oh, gee, that hurts. There's a bit of a hole there. Oh, how are we going to plug that hole?
Yeah.
And we've gone out, we've run around, done strategies. We've thrown so much money at marketing, employed people to do things, and none of it seems to work. Like, you're like, what is going on? And then it's just been like, we've just gotten back to the place of getting on our knees and going, Lord, your will be done.
Yeah.
Not mine, yours.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied in you. I'm content in you. And so if this is what you want for us, we're content.
Yeah.
And every time God then just goes, bang, there you go.
That's amazing.
And we have new clients walk through the door or ring us. And we're just like, what the heck?
That's awesome.
And so it's just that journey. God is not after making our lives comfortable. He's after conforming our hearts so that we have dispositions to want to serve and worship him. That's what he's after. He's going, I want you to enjoy the love that I have for you. That's what I want for you.
Very good.
Not to have more money or to have more clients or to have more Instagram followers or whatever. It's really that intimacy that he's desiring for us.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So just aware of the time, and I wanted to get into another topic, but we can do that another time. I'll be more than happy to get you on again, and we can dive into the depths of everything else. What advice would you give to other Christians who are looking to incorporate or integrate their faith into their professional lives and make an impact in their respective industries or places where they work?
My first encouragement is that, I suppose, be integrous to the way that God has created you to be.
Right.
Be integrous to the gifts, the talents, the personality that God's granted you, and not to be tempted to look at other Christians and just copycat.
Wow. Acknowledge
the beauty of the uniqueness that God has created you to be, because that's the way that God will work through you, and you'll be graced to do this work. That'll be my first. You get a lot of copycatting. You get a lot of people going, right, that's working for them, so I'll just do the exact same thing. Or that's their personality, so I'll just copy their personality and try and be them. No. Be settled in who God has created you to be. I am shockingly bad at administrative stuff. Like, I suck. First year of business, right? I was doing it all. I was doing the paperwork, and I got to the end of the year, and my wife's like, I think we need to get an accountant involved. And so we go see an accountant who happened to be a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So he's very gracious. And I showed him everything, and he's like, I've never seen anything more in a mess in my life. Like, he's like, I know you've made a great loss this year.
Wow.
So we don't need to worry about, like,
rehashing that.
Yeah, like, you haven't made a profit. It's quite clear you haven't made a profit. You've got a lot of money has gone out. Not much money's come in. And so it was just like, yeah, I should not be doing anything.
Yeah.
So just being settled in that, being settled in, right, I'm not good at that. Find someone who is, and championing them in that, and being thankful that, right, I'm good at relationships. I'm good at, whatever it might be, the vision, the strategy of the business. You might be very creative. Okay, so how can God work in and through me to be the ambassador of Christ through the way that God's created me to be to the world? That's how God's going to work in and through you. That's where His Spirit will grace you to go about and do those things. So for me, I'm super relationally sensitive to people. Where for Steve has just got this, that real sense of going, hey, he almost a prophetic sense of going, oh, there's something ahead that I think is really going to weigh on this person. And I think if we did X, Y, Z, it would alleviate their burden. And he'll see things that I won't see. I won't even, won't even be on my radar. I'm like, no, you're making something out of nothing.
Right.
But the amount of times it actually starts happening, and it might be he's just spoken to the person, he's picked something up, and he's like, interesting. And he walks away and he's like, I think this might be happening, or they're actually not doing well.
Yeah.
We need to bless them, so it's complementing, being aware that you can't be all things to all men.
Yeah.
You just can't.
That dependency on the Holy Spirit.
And being confident that He will use you in the way that He's created you.
Very good.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, Luke. Thanks so much for sitting down and sharing with us your story and your insights from what you've learned and those challenges that you faced as well.
Yeah, no, pleasure, mate.
It's been awesome, and I hope people are encouraged from listening to you that you're not presenting yourself in this manner of you have all the answers.
No.
You've made all the right decisions, and that's why you've become successful. But it's really beautiful to hear you say community is so important.
So important.
Gather around you people who will encourage you in Christ, but then also give that wisdom to complementing your weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just as well, like how important it is to take risks, but at the same time, that dependency on God is really, really key. So yeah, thanks so much, Luke.
Oh, absolute pleasure, mate.
Loved having a conversation.
It's been great being with you.
Until next time, we'll have another one for sure.
Oh, mate, I'm excited.